So have you been witness to any airplanes that are coming in hot?
Nothing caught on fire.
Because I was just going to ask, was it like flames coming out?
I mean, you heard the sound of metal scraping on concrete. I come out, the two of them each have a broom in their hands. They're trying to whack the snake.
Oh, no.
The passion of wanting to tear the thing apart and put it back together again. It's not me coming home and saying, okay, now I have to work on my car. I ended up absolutely loving it.
Hello and welcome to Good Job New Mexico. I'm your host, Stacy Johnston, and today we're talking with Maria Vianco, an aviation technician and owner. This is a great story. I hope that you take the time to listen to this one the whole way through because she has such a great story of going in a certain direction and maybe the direction most people might take, which is school, college, career. And she decided midway through that that wasn't for her. And she took a different road and she took that leap into the unknown and it ended up working out exactly as she had hoped. And now she's in aviation and she's one of the few women that are out there doing mechanic work and inspiring other women to also go into that same field. So her story is inspirational and amazing, and there's a fun story. If you make it to the end, you're really going to be happy that you did. But without further ado, please enjoy Maria Vianco. Hi, thanks for being here today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So I want to learn all about aviation mechanics and how you got into it, but we're going to go way back to the beginning and tell us where you're from.
So I am from Albuquerque. I was born and raised here. Haven't done much in terms of leaving the city, but I have traveled a lot. But, good old New Mexico. I love it. Best flying weather in the whole United States. At least that's my opinion. And you got the sandias. And I love coming home after work and seeing that.
Definitely. When you're flying, this is so kind of a little off topic, but when you're flying, do you hear something and you're like, I bet that's whatever?
Yes. It's actually both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because I am the maintainer for my airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm constantly looking at, okay, so instead of enjoying the flight and looking out, okay, if my engine quits, where am I going to land? What am I going to do? And I'm trying to fix the thing as I'm flying. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to go real well.
Yikes.
But I do it specifically when I'm flying my plane. In a commercial plane, I do not want to be there, not having a good time. I actually have a fear of flying.
Oh my gosh. So was it torture going overseas?
Yes.
Oh, no.
It was. I definitely made my knuckles turn white for most of it.
Oh, dang. You should have just slept.
I should have.
Stayed up 24 hours so that you were for sure going to sleep on the plane.
Hindsight's 20/20.
All right. Next time, just sleep through it. So you grew up here in Albuquerque. And then what high school did you go to?
I went to Albuquerque Academy.
Oh, nice.
I was born and raised on the east side. I stayed there, and then I met my boyfriend, and that's why I'm out in Rio Rancho now.
Yay. I am also out in Rio Rancho. Don't you love it?
It is beautiful, and there's not a lot of horrible traffic.
I mean, I come downtown to Albuquerque, so there's a little bit.
There's a little bit.
But this isn't like Denver or something,
Not at all.
If you're from Denver, we love you.
Sorry.
The traffic, honestly. Okay, so you went to Albuquerque Academy, and then when you were going through that as a teenager, you were also interested in mechanics at that same time?
Yes, I was. I was part of Fastino's car group every Wednesday. We'd go to Fastino's, which is a small little pizza place that unfortunately no longer exists. And we'd show our cars, we'd get dinner. I just loved wrenching. I loved being around it. I could talk to the old guys for hours and hours about what they did. My senior year, we had a senior project, and it was about how do you want to go out into the world? I chose mechanics. There's Motiva Performance, which also no longer exists. I interned there for 4 weeks. I was like, yep, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. My dad told me I had to go to mechanical engineering, and I did, and did not enjoy it.
And by that, do you mean like at UNM, or where did you go?
At UNM.
Okay.
So I was in the engineering program because I was told that was the only way I was going to have a good job.
And was your dad a mechanic?
My dad is not a mechanic, but he is very electrically engineering.
Mm-hmm.
He can solder metals together and study their effects.
Interesting.
That's all I really know.
Okay, that's fine. When you were in college at UNM, you said it just wasn't for you. What does that mean? And how did you know?
The best way to describe it is you don't necessarily go into an opportunity saying like, this isn't for me. It's very much the dread of having to go back the next day. And once you start hitting that, it's not worth it. You dread that drive going from your house to the parking lot, you dread that walk, and you find no joy in it. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, that's quite enough. What am I wanting to do at the end of the day? I want to work with my hands. I'm tired of calculus. I'm tired of physics. That I told my dad that I was like, okay, I've already failed out of one class because I'm fighting a professor. I'm not going back. Got into the AMT program out at C&M, and I was like, this excites me. This is what I want to do. But I wanted to keep my job separate from my cars. So I was like, okay, aviation, I love airplanes. I love working on them. I'm still going to be wrenching. I'm still going to have the passion of wanting to tear the thing apart and put it back together again. And it's not me coming home and saying, okay, now I have to work on my car. I ended up absolutely loving it.
I mean, what was that feeling of like dropping and then going a different direction?
My dad was not happy with me.
Yeah.
Because, family of engineers, you uphold the legacy. He did not believe that I would be able to succeed. He has never thought that I would be a good mechanic. He'd never had that faith in me. Though years later, it was very much he was very scared of what was going to happen in the event I did fail out or something bad did happen. So I can understand being a dad, that's where you're going from.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that you stayed true to yourself and you just went in the direction that your heart was pulling you in.
Absolutely. My dad told me about this 4 months ago. He's like, I just didn't know what to do. Like, what happens if something goes wrong?
I mean, we're all trying to figure out this parenting thing. It's so hard. As a parent of two, I'm like, Are you somebody that likes to take things apart and really figure out how it functions and how it works?
Yes.
Do you remember the first thing that you did that to?
Of the things that haven't gotten me in trouble?
It could be either or.
I would take apart almost anything. Wind up cars, I'd take those apart, unscrew them, put them back together. I end up doing a lot of general repair while I'm at the gym. I look at the things that I'm like, okay, this needs to be fixed because this doesn't feel right. Anything and everything that I can get my paws on. My dad helped me take apart our old Nokia phone, which I'm surprised it was even able to come apart.
Yes, I love it.
That's what I would just take apart, put back together, and I got a model engine for my birthday one year, and I just sat and glued the pieces together, and I love it.
Okay, well, you sound like you're very good at it.
I try.
So was there anybody else in your life that was into mechanics, or was this just something you naturally gravitated towards?
My two great uncles were I call them my second parents because they've been my best friends for years. But Tal, he also does a lot of mechanics. He's rebuilt and flipped bunches of cars. He would teach me a lot as well. I would always go to Tal if I had questions. And then my uncles I wasn't really close with until my adult life. And that's because my family moved to New Hampshire and I was like, okay, I need some help down here. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to my uncles. And my one uncle has a bunch of like old tea buckets, like 1920s cars. And then my other uncle has a couple of 1930s cars.
Oh, nice. How fun. And do they loan them out to the movies?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
No, they stay in their garage. They haven't really seen a road in about 10 years.
This is such an off-topic conversation, but since we're talking about cars. So when I first started dating my husband, we were driving somewhere and I was like, oh, look at those white walls. They're so awesome on that car. And he looked at me. He was like, how do you even know what that is? I was like, doesn't everybody know what a white wall tire is? And he's like, oh, you're just like my dad.
So which means I assume you got along great with his dad.
We do get along great. It's the best.
I love that. That makes me happy.
Yeah, I know, right? So you went to C&M. And then in the C&M program, is that when you first got to mess with planes, or like how did that come about?
That is when I got to mess with planes. It's the AMT, so Aviation Maintenance Technician. It is FAA regulated, so they have a syllabus and they have a structure of how you're going to go about learning this material. The class is broken up into 3 sections. So you have your general section, which is how do you add fractions? How do you write a paper? You're going out into the workforce. What is the general things you're going to need? And then you have your airframe and power plant. So your airframe section is going to be, okay, everything that is not the engine. Taking apart the wing and re-riveting it, things like that. How do you make a cable? And then your power plant section is going to be, okay, how do you change your oil? How do you replace spark plugs? What are you looking for when you inspect spark plugs? How do you retime a magneto? How do you take an engine apart?
Did you volunteer? You're like, I'll go first. I'll take that apart.
I didn't. I actually got stuck on the engine by myself because my partner ended up being super sick.
Oh, no.
So I took apart this engine by myself, labeled everything, put it back together, and I was like, yeah, that was fun. Took a while, but that was my first time.
I like that it was more practical, hands-on. You can really see the connection to the workforce after school.
Oh, absolutely. And then launching straight into a job out at Double Eagle. I was working at the flight school for 2.5 years, and it's all that practical knowledge that you're learning. I loved it. I loved a lot of it. We could afford to get paid a little better, but
For sure.
We can always afford to paid better, right?
For sure. So you're working at Double Eagle, and then what's the next move?
Well, right now I own my own business, and we'll see how far that takes me. I'm working on getting my airplane ratings, and I'm just kind of flowing, vibing through life.
How do you, okay, hold on. Backing up 2 steps. So to go the distance there to opening your own, what certificates or qualifications do you need? Or do you have?
So right now I have my AMP-IA, which normal terms means I am qualified to work on the entire aircraft, which is my airframe and power plant certificate. And then my IA is the inspector authorization. It is a certification from the FAA saying that I'm able to perform annual inspections, which is the inspection that has to be performed on the airplane once a year. I can modify the aircraft. So by doing a 337, that's very much like, okay, I'm putting in a new set of latches that didn't come on the airplane originally. That is a permanent modification, and only an IA can really sign that off. And then the other thing that I have is a non-love of working for other people.
Okay. And so then it's like next move is to work for yourself.
And then the next move is to work for yourself. That is correct.
How do you get started in doing your own entrepreneurial business?
Like I would do tires on the side. I do an oil change here and there. I do little jobs that, I had the confidence to know how to do because they didn't want to go to a bigger shop and pay double, which is fair. And then more and more and more started coming. And I realized I wanted legal backup. So I have the business LLC now, and I'm working on getting insurance. So that way I have that backup of just doing it on my own.
And then do you run space at Double Eagle, or where's your shop?
I do not have a shop. I go to people's hangars. So I'm a mobile mechanic, and I also work out of the greater Albuquerque area. So that means Belen, Moriarty, occasionally Santa Fe as well.
Amazing. And it sounds like a referral process that you already had built up, and it's just growing probably.
Yes, it started with my brother-in-law, and he's told his friends who've told their friends. And now I've got more that I can handle for having a full-time job as well. So I recently left that, and now I just run my business.
Amazing. And what does that feel like to be your own boss?
Well, I can get up at 10 a.m. now.
That's so nice. What is that like?
I joke about it. It's a lot more holistic in terms of you're seeing all of it. Now you're ordering the parts. You're now doing the billing. You're now making sure that the work is done right. You're doing all of the paperwork. So where at previous jobs, I would just be a mechanic, I am now all of it, which takes a lot of stress off me despite the increased workload, because now it's done the way that makes sense to me, and I'm not questioning every step of the way.
Well, okay. So was it intuitive when you were getting going, or was there like some stumbling blocks along the way that you were figuring out?
There is definitely some stumbling blocks that I'm still working on. And a lot of it is computer. Like, how do I have this image in my head of how to make an invoice, for example. How do I coax the computer to do the thing I need it to do? That's been a lot of the stumbling blocks, is like, okay, I have all of this information that needs to get across. How do I do it in a clean, concise manner? It's going a lot better than it was about 4 months ago, which is great.
So now that you're an entrepreneur working for yourself, which is amazing, what's a typical day look like for you?
I joked earlier that I get up at 10 a.m., but I really don't. So I'll get up early. I'll typically go to the gym, just, have some time to myself. And then I'll get to the airport. It'll be either troubleshooting, trying to figure out why a problem exists and how to fix it. Or like, for example, on my brother-in-law's plane, it is very much a combination of both, where I'm trying to figure out why the problem exists, and then I'm replacing the parts that need to be replaced. And so it can either be that form of structure, or it can be an inspection where everything is open. I'm looking at everything. I'm making sure everything is within tolerances. And it's very structured because there's a checklist. I can go in any order that I need to. So it's also about how do you plan out your schedule so that you aren't working 14-hour days when there's no need to.
Right. Is it hard to stop if you're working independently? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Because it's like you get involved in a problem, probably, and you want to see it out to the end. And it's like, I can stop and come back to this tomorrow.
Oh, very much. Yeah. And previous jobs have been that pressure to finish that day, where these are a lot more of the private owners, where they aren't going to be flying in 3 hours. They're going to fly next week. So it's like, okay, here's my plan for today. We're going to do these 3 tasks, see where it gets us. And okay, hey, so I end up finishing those 3 tasks early. I'll start on my next task. Let's try and be as efficient as possible, but know that I'll be back tomorrow just in case.
And then you have your pilot's license too, right?
I do.
And I'm sure that lends itself well to be able to know how to fly the plane in terms of the mechanics on the inside.
Yes. I am a firm believer that every pilot should spend some time in the maintenance shop because you are physically seeing the machine you're operating. I believe every mechanic should also get some flying lessons. So, okay, hey, the thing is making a ding. Why is it making a ding? In what phase of flight? And it fosters that communication between the pilots and the mechanics.
So have you been witness to any airplanes that are coming in hot, meaning like something has definitely broken, one of these pieces?
The only one I've ever witnessed, and this was a couple years ago, a guy lost his electrical system right above the airport. He was coming in from the west, so I think he was coming in from like Oklahoma, heading towards Las Vegas, Nevada. And he lost his electrical system, and this is a twin-engine aircraft, and couldn't put the gear down. Like, there was no possible way he could put that gear down. His shoulder was injured, and so there is a manual gear extension on those airplanes, but because he had an injured shoulder, he couldn't put it down, and he was circling, trying to burn off fuel, trying to do all of that, and all I see is I managed to go out to the lobby of the airport, and I just see this plane just beautiful landing. Like, I give the pilot props, literally. Used up the whole runway. No landing
Just came down on his belly. Wow.
Had a debris trail about half a mile long.
That is so scary.
He's okay.
Good?
Nothing caught on fire.
That's shocking. Because I was just going to ask, was it like flames coming out?
No. I mean, you heard the sound of metal scraping on concrete, which is... That's a sound, but the pilot was okay. I mean, his shoulder was not doing very well, but the pilot was okay. They ended up getting the plane off the runway. I was there with the FAA with FOD collection and everything. But yeah, I was able to crawl into the airplane. We had a forklift on one engine, a cherry picker and a jack on the other trying to get this thing up. And because I'm the smallest, I crawled in and undid the gear so that way we could roll it off the runway.
Are there many females or are you one of few females?
I am one of few. I do work with Women in Aviation and Association for Women in Aviation Maintenance to try and get more females into maintenance. But in terms of how many female AMPs there are in the state, I think there's probably 10 at most. Out of the class I graduated with at CNM, there was 8 of us total that graduated, and I was the only female. So they're good guys, but I'm still better.
Yes. Do you have any advice for anybody that might be mechanically inclined and thinking, can I do this? Because I feel like sometimes people think it's a male-dominated industry.
Which it is, unfortunately.
Do you have any advice for a female that's thinking about doing that? Honestly, advice for anybody that's thinking about going this direction.
The biggest thing is that I very much do not like to be the face of anything. I love to be in the background, but I'm realizing that that's not going to help. And if we want more mechanics, more female mechanics, especially gifted female mechanics, you got to put yourself out there. And I try and have a contact at every, like the aviation high school, at CNM, at UNM, anybody that has an inkling. I'm like, here's my information. You ask me questions. I will get you as much help as I possibly can. If I am one contact and you build more, fantastic. If I'm your sole contact, I'll help you out as much as I can.
And thank you for doing that, because I'm sure people are looking for that guidance, or just tell me how you did it. Because sometimes people might, and this is for any job, you might feel like, can I even make that happen? Or it feels like so unattainable or so difficult.
Yeah.
But it's really just taking that first step, which you did.
Yes.
You took that first step and being like, I know this isn't for me and I'm going to go this other direction, which is huge. And I think that's a hard step. And you did it. And this is a living testament that you follow your dreams and they can come true. So thanks for that. Okay. I'm going to dive into something that I read about.
Okay.
So you might have had a little friend that appeared one day as you were working. Tell our listeners that little friend and who he was.
Okay. So we had a snake at work.
No, thank you.
It just came into the hangar. The hangar was cool, which is probably why the snake came in the first place. I go to the bathroom because, it was the end of the day, get ready to leave. And I hear my coworkers, they are almost, I don't know if it's screaming, laughing, shrieking. I don't know what's going on. And I come out and the two of them each have a broom in their hands. They're trying to whack this.
Oh, no.
It was the funniest thing. And the snake is like, excuse me. And we had a plane up on jacks. So we were doing an annual inspection, one of those yearly inspections, right? And so we're, plane's up there. We're not going to get it down because I have to do some landing gear work. The snake crawls up the jack and into the wing of the airplane. And I spent about half an hour coaxing the snake out of the plane wing.
I would have said, I'm so sorry to the owner, but you now have a snake as a pet. Like, goodbye. Here's your plane bag.
The guys are just having a cow or a snake, Yeah.
But how do you coax it out?
I literally grabbed it by the tail and just started running my finger along its belly, which causes it to hunch up.
How do you know this?
I have two snakes.
Okay.
And so I'm coaxing the snake out. It's a young snake. And I parade this thing around the lobby and everyone's screaming and shrieking. It was kind of funny.
And it didn't try to bite you?
No, it was just very annoyed and kept hissing at me.
Oh, what kind of snake was it?
It's a bull snake.
Okay.
So this thing naturally looks super angry to be alive. And yellow, it was the cutest little thing. I'm parading this thing around the lobby and, they're like, okay, take this thing outside, please. Yeah. Go away. And, I look at the snake. I'm like, okay, buddy, stay out of my hangar. And I walk outside, give the snake a kiss on the head because what better way to annoy it? And the snake is just hissing. Just oh my gosh, a deflated balloon. And I let him go and he slithers off and life is good. But
my blood pressure raised on that story. It's I freak out if there's a spider in my car. If there was a snake, abandoned ship, I don't know what else to say.
Burn it down.
Yes, goodbye. And are you able to do most things just by yourself or do you have somebody that comes in once in a while?
I can do most things by myself, but typically I have the owners there with me so that if I need an extra set of hands, they're right along there. They're seeing everything I'm seeing and they're my extra set of hands.
That's great. Plus they're getting this is what you do if this happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to expand, maybe have somebody with me, but I really value having my customers there because they're like, hey, what is this thingy?
Right.
Well, this thing is called a fuse, and this is what happens when X, Y, or Z. So they are right there. And I'm like, hey, I need a 3/8 wrench. Okay, what is that? Well, that's how I work with them. It's just, okay, if you have a question, it's not stupid.
And I have a new love and appreciation for wrenches because I recently was building something a couple weekends ago, and I don't know what it's called when it's just an open face wrench, whatever.
Yeah, an open end.
Okay.
You're doing great.
I used that for half of this build, and my hands were going to break off. And I was like, there has to be a better way. And I went to our little toolbox, and there was the socket.
Nice.
I wanted to cry because it was so much easier. It was I don't know why I just killed my hands this whole time.
Oh, I know.
So a new love.
My favorite part is going to Harbor Freight and getting the cheap tools because if I need to modify it, I can take a grinder to it.
What? Wow.
Oh, yeah. And they're cheap too.
Okay.
But sockets are beautiful, especially if you have a nice, ratcheting ratchet and it just clicks. You're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Do you think that people that are working car mechanics now, is it easy to make that transition over to airplane mechanics?
The best way to describe it is that it's a Venn diagram with that intersection in the middle. There's a lot of knowledge that's shared. And I can guarantee that because I started off wrenching on my cars. I started learning how to do all of this via the automobile world. So that Venn diagram where it intersects in the middle, it's a lot bigger than what you would consider most Venn diagrams. Okay, there's a lot of that knowledge of wrench sizes, sockets, how does a internal combustion engine go with the intake, the combustion, the compression, and the exhaust. That's the same via automobile and aviation. The difference between the two is regulations, procedures, and kind of just how everything goes. So where in a modern car, so my daily driver is a Lexus, I have fuel injection, which means the fuel gets directly into the cylinders. Most airplanes have that now too, but it's a completely different system of how does that fuel get from the fuel tanks to the engine. So some might be a pressure pump, some might be gravity fed, and that's literally where the tanks sit higher than the engine. So it uses the force of gravity to supply that fuel. It would not be a hard transition in terms of automotive to aviation or aviation to automotive, but the big thing is making sure you have all of your paperwork to have your certificates because, anybody can work on a car. That's why there is YouTube certified mechanics, and I need a patch for that, but. But with that being said, I can't YouTube certify mechanic my way out of an airplane. I have to have my FAA certifications for that. And that is really the only way for it to be legal, especially because, like I said earlier, you can't pull over on the next cloud if something were to go wrong. And it's very much that structure that is needed in aviation, as well as it's a hard thing to get used to. But luckily, I've been doing it for long enough that it's very second nature now. And I use a lot of the techniques that I've learned at work on my car.
Okay, so we're going to do some rapid, not so rapid questions. What was your very first job?
I was a lifeguard swim instructor.
Your favorite go-to lunch?
A peanut butter and honey sandwich with Fritos.
Okay, yes, peanut butter and honey.
Yep.
It's the best.
And you can put bananas on it too.
Your biggest fear, we heard it was flying. Any other phobias?
I mean, flying and falling are pretty much the same. So I will not skydive.
Okay. Out. Pass. Hard pass. I mean, why get out of a functional airplane that's running?
That's what I said. Exactly. I prefer to be strapped into my airplane.
There you are. Describe your job using only emojis.
Okay. The wrench, the small airplane emoji, and the thumbs up, the double thumbs up. Because sometimes that's just...
And final question, red or green?
Christmas.
I was going to say chili. Yes, correct answer.
Christmas. Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate all your time.
Of course.
Bye. This has been a New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions production. Our producer is Milo Koleski. This episode was engineered and mixed by John Sloan. Theme music is One Fine Day, courtesy of podcast.co. Follow the show on social media at GoodJobNM. For program funding, visit our website, dws.state.nm.us/funding. Bye.